Square in Boston has long been a vibrant hub of counterculture, embodying the spirit of rebellion and artistic expression. Nestled in the heart of the city, this iconic square has served as a gathering place for freethinkers, artists, and activists for decades. From the Beat Generation's poetry reading in smoky coffee houses to the punk rock scene that echoed through its street in the late 20th century, Kenmore Square has been a crucible of alternative voices. The gritty charm of historic architecture and the eclectic mix of shops and venues have provided the canvas voters who seek to challenge the mainstream. Whether it's the iconic punk rock heaven, the Rathskeller, or the historic Hotel Buckminster, Kenmore Square is a living testament to the enduring legacy of counterculture in Boston, a place where creativity and dissent continue to thrive. In the heart of Boston counterculture scene lies a hidden gem that echoes the rebellious spirit of the city's alternative movements, the Rathskeller. Nestled in the underground labyrinths of Kenmore Square, this legendary venue has become heaven for those seeking refuge from mainstream norms. As the pulsating heartbeat of Boston counterculture, the Rathskeller has witnessed the rise of iconic bands that have left an indelible mark on the city's musical landscape. The gritty resonance of punk and post-punk reverberates through its dimly lit corridors, with unfiltered energy that defines the counterculture ethos. The Rathskeller is a testament to the ongoing spirit of nonconformity, where the underground scene thrives and the diverse sound of rebellion find a home.
There are a lot of famous bands. I mean, bands like a lot of the punk bands from New York would play there when their first album came out. Big Blondie, maybe Talking Heads. Yeah, and known that, they weren't big when they played the Rad.
Oh.
Like the next time they came to town, they'd probably play the Paradise because it was bigger. And the next time they played New York, it was a music hall. So the first rung of the ladder would be the Rad.
Oh, so the Rad is a really famous place at Kenmore Square that many bands will play music at here, isn't it?
Yeah, the bar was upstairs. The basement was where the music was. Well, Gangrene was probably more punk than the Cars, which were maybe new wave, even though these bands probably didn't call themselves that. But so the Cars were more mainstream and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they had huge hits, Best Friend's Girl and all that stuff. So they were huge. Gangrene might have had some smaller hits or something, and they were good. I think they were on local labels. Two of the members have died, so they're not really continuing. And Gangrene, I think, still plays around once in a while. I could be wrong about that. But they're kind of different types of music. I mean, there was the Rat had all kinds of music. They had punk music, pop music. It wasn't necessarily all like hardcore punk or anything that a lot of people think the Rat was.
The social-political climate of Kenmore Square in Boston from the 1970s to the 1990s was dynamic and reflected of broader changes in urban America during this period, and it has significant contribution to the fueling counterculture scene. Kenmore Square had undergone significant urban renewal, including the demolition of old buildings and the relocation of low-income residents. At the same time, the debate over the early stages of urban development and gentrification was intense. The developers' efforts to regenerate the area had caused a revolt among those who had received these corporate-led renovations. During this time, Kenmore Square also became a center for live music and art, with venues such as the Red and the Paradise Rock Club fostering punk, rock, and alternative music that symbolized a rebellion against mainstream culture. Alt media, including underground magazines such as the Boston Phoenix, carries the subculture forward.
Counterculture is anything that is going against sort of like what the mainstream mainstream is going against the majority, going against what's popular. It's not popular. Something that's too popular.
It seems like counter is different than, and culture is what that is. And so it's a rebellion against what that is. And so counterculture was just a marketing label that's put onto things to sell clothes. And so we're going to sell some punk rock clothes. We're going to call it counterculture. Even the Sex Pistols, who were the punk band in England, they were created by their manager to sell clothes. He had a clothing store. So it's so counterculture or punk rock. It's all just labels for commerce. Culture is established. You know, the Ministry of Culture, right? You have this government ministry that's in charge of culture. It's okay, everybody. There's some culture, buy some culture, and then culture is about commerce. So counterculture is about not that, but then that also becomes culture. Yeah, because they play music that is
right.
But it's becoming more and more popular. Become mainstream music, like
That's a good point. I mean, I think the counterculture always sort of evolves into becoming part of the culture. I mean, the hippie culture of the '60s, you know, is part of your world, you know, and all the beatnik era of the '50s, the people who wrote beat poetry and, you know, hung around and smoked weed. That's part of it too. It all just becomes a thread in the culture. You know, everything eventually it's like a stew. You know, I mean, it's a melting pot. You know, everybody ends up in the same delicious entree.
Well, at that point, the industry was still very in process. It wasn't really developed. You had disco, you know, dance music, very produced dance music, and, you know, colored lights and dancing. And then you had punk rock, kind of a reaction to that. And then you had like post-punk rock and new wave, and then you had like dance music of the '80s. And so it's always this kind of constant change. So that disco actually became part of punk. It became like post-punk and new wave and dance music. And dance music got a little darker. But then in the '80s, music got very kind of like, MTV was a big thing. And all the bands looked like pretty girls. Even the guys, they had long hair and they were wearing makeup. And then you had Nirvana come along, which was very alternative. And then that kind of also then became incorporated. And so the music, it's a constant reaction against what's happening, and then that in turn becomes part of what's happening, and then there's a new reaction against that, and then that becomes incorporated, and then it happens again. And so all the while you had hip-hop too. Hip-hop and rap is very counterculture. Nowadays. Even then. Yeah. Because actually back then it was black musicians making their own poetry, and they couldn't afford instruments, so they used turntables. That was very punk rock, to make music without instruments, to use turntables and a microphone. That was really punk rock, challenging the way that it was done. And so that's the job of art. It's the job of art, right? It's to like be counterculture until you get absorbed, and then you become part of the counterculture, and then that in turn happens again. So there's a constant. There's always something new. That's counterculture, and then.
I think that I was just starting out then, and I think I felt more comfortable playing with other women because I didn't have a lot of confidence, you know, that I could play really fast and really loud, and you know, the men all seemed very competitive, you know, trying to be louder than each other and play faster, and I didn't want that. I think me and the other women I played with felt more comfortable like playing together and making our own thing.
During the 1970s to 1990s, Kenmore Square in Boston witnessed urban renewal, sparking debates on gentrification. Despite corporate-driven changes, locals resisted, creating a clash between development and cultural preservation. Kenmore Square emerged as a hub for the counterculture movement, which iconic events like the Red and Paradise Rock Club fostering punk and alternative scenes, changing mainstream norms. The area's social-political landscape was enriched by alternative media, especially the Boston Phoenix, amplifying subculture's voice. Kenmore Square's historic architecture and eclectic Venus provide a vibrant backdrop for artistic expression. The Red epitomized Boston's countercultural spirit, nurturing an underground music scene marked by nonconformity. In essence, Kenmore Square reflected urban narratives, balancing development dynamics with the imperative of cultural retention, a beacon of creativity and activism in Boston history.